Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications.
Hope you're doing well today. It is July the 30th, 2020, which means that we've been dealing with COVID-19 for about 6 or 7 months now. Wow. So that also means that we have about another, 24 or 30 months left, maybe. So unless, of course, it just miraculously goes away. I can't remember who said that, but I just remember he has worse hair than I do. He was the one that said it, so hopefully he's right and I'm wrong. All right, but hopefully you're taking care of yourself and looking after each other in the process. All right, now I do have a question or two to cover in this video, and if you have a question about Maitreya the Masters of Wisdom or what's related to what we talk about in this video series, the easiest thing to do is just post your question as a comment, or you can email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com, and just like what I want to be doing with their questions is answering the question in the next video. Just listen to the next video and then bam, there's your answer to your question. All right. And then I expect full payment in the mail by the time the next video comes out. No, I'm just kidding. All answers are free. Just remember that you get what you pay for. So now, before I get into the question and answer portion of this video, I do want to focus in on this one quote here. Peace always comes from within. This is coming from Maitreya. Now, most of the time when I post quotes of his as background to my videos, they're coming from when he overshadowed Benjamin Creme. And every single time that Benjamin Creme did a lecture, he was overshadowed by Maitreya at the end and gave a blessing out to the crowd. Now, there was a series of videos, and series of lectures, excuse me, and they were recorded, and you can actually get the recordings if you want, but they were recorded from late 70s to the early 80s, and there's about 140 of them. It was quite a bit of, number of lectures that he did. But at the end of the lecture, Maitreya overshadowed him like he always does, but this time he actually gave his messages out there. So it was to alert the fact that he was here, but also to kind of give a little taste of what his solutions are to our ever-growing problems, and of course his priorities and so forth. Now, this particular quote he actually said to me personally, and he said it to me at a time of my life when I was stressed out personally, financially, and also on my job, and maybe a couple other things too were definitely stressing me out. Had my stress been water in a pool and I was in the pool, I would say it was, I'd have been about 2 feet underwater. I mean, that's how overwhelmed I felt at the time that he came to me and said this. Now, where I work out in the public, and there were a lot of people in the store that day, and here comes Maitreya. And when he's about to pay for his coffee, of course, I was ruminating about all my problems and what I need to do, and stressed out about this and that and the other, and thinking about myself the whole time. He takes the money that he was going to pay for his coffee, and he lifts his hand way above his head and smacks it on this granite counter. And it sounded to me like a thunderclap. It was like whack. And it was so loud that I actually remember jumping back a little bit. And it really kind of shook me into this kind of dumbfounded kind of awe. And he looks at me with this intention. And I remember his eyes were just focused on my eyes. And he goes, "Peace always comes from within. I'll see you later." And walks out. Now, it took me a few minutes to kind of get back to work, where I was like, okay, I got to get through my shift, so I can't just think about this the whole time. But I thought about it a lot over the last few years, and I tried to apply it. Am I perfect at it? No, of course not. I'm just like everybody else. But, the thing of it is, we all look to the external when we're stressed. We all maybe talk to our friends and family, try to get their advice, obsessively talk about whatever it is, whatever the case may be. Look, maybe more money is the answer, whatever it happens to be, right? Well, I think this is the answer. Peace always comes from within. We have to look within ourselves. And since I've been doing this, it really has changed my life. So hopefully it will help change yours, because he was not just saying this for me. He was saying this for everybody. And he was probably saying this knowing that I was dumb enough to tell people about this. So anyway, and that's why I think it's important. And it's definitely important today, because I don't think that the coronavirus is going anywhere. I don't think this financial, crash is going anywhere soon, and I don't think it's just going to bounce back and we're going to have this V-shaped recovery like that guy with really bad hair keeps promising everybody. And I don't think the coronavirus is just going to disappear on its own. I think that we're going to be with this for a while. So as times get tougher and more stressful for all of us and we get face to face with this disease, just remember, peace always comes from within. So hopefully that helps. Now let's get on to the questions, which I always enjoy answering as many questions as I can. So hopefully you enjoy listening to your answer as much as I enjoy trying to answer it. All right, so this question comes from David O. In the world, I've read there has been a rise in those practicing witchcraft as well as a rise in neo-paganism. Do either you or the masters have any input on this phenomenon? Are these people engaging in satanic activity? If so, what should be done about it? Well, I can give you my input, and then when you see the masters out open in the world, you can ask them, and their answer will be a lot more astounding and more understandable and simple than mine would ever be. But you got me for right now. Now, David, I personally don't think that there's really a rise in any of this, in witchcraft or paganism. I think it's more of an awareness of what's going on, because witchcraft and paganism has been going on for eons. Now, maybe there's a slight rise in it. I don't know. But for the most part, like I said, with a lot of stuff, it's more of just coming to the surface and we're becoming aware of it. Now, also, too, I think that people who practice witchcraft and paganism, they're probably a little more comfortable talking about it with people than they were maybe 400 or 500 years ago when you would have been burned at the stake if your neighbors knew that you were doing that kind of stuff. When we look online and we see people who are doing this, are they really doing it, or are they just wishing they could do it and, desiring to do it? I mean, I don't know. It just depends. But spirituality, which witchcraft and paganism are, I guess, a part of that to a degree, has been around since the beginning of humanity, really. And it's really the mysticism of religion that's more of a newer phenomenon based off of belief and belief. That's basically all it is. Where spirituality is more of a constructive approach to life and the cosmos. Now, there are two types and two brands of spirituality, right? And two types of magic, right? So you got dark magic or satanic, which you were referring to as satanic activity, and then there's white magic, right? Selfish and unselfish, right? Now, to give you an example of how long and ancient this stuff has been going on and how ancient it is, during one of the conferences that I attended in San Francisco, Benjamin Creme talked a little bit about the time of Atlantis. Now, he said that the average consciousness of humanity at that time was a little more than animal. Now, there were groups of people that were far more advanced than humanity living here on the planet, but they didn't come from our evolution. They fell from other planets, either by their own misdoings or by a form of service. And so, but they were the ones that really were the leaders of the time. Now, those who practiced dark magic dominated humanity as much as they could, and were selfish and greedy, and the materialism of that time, according to Benjamin Creme, was even far greater than it is today, which is kind of hard to believe, but apparently it was. And then, of course, there were those souls who were trying to influence humanity more toward good, and selfless, and the light and wisdom and so forth. And that's the group that I'm talking about, the Masters of Wisdom. So they were working with humanity, trying to influence humanity at the same point. Now, he said that materialism and black magic was so pronounced that there were people living in castles made of solid gold. They used to bathe in milk, and they had people corralled in stables like animals. That's how bad it was. And then when they found out that people were starting to steal the bits and pieces of their gold castle, right? They'd come out that day and they'd see something chipped away at it. They actually put spells on the gold. So if a thief were to try to chip away at it, which they did, they would turn into all sorts of animals. And there were instances where they would turn him into a pig. So this thief is chipping away at a gold castle, right? And then they break off a little bit of the gold. And as soon as they did that, they turned into a pig. Then they would catch the pig, roast it. That night they'd have a banquet and they would kill it and roast it and then eat it. And so basically they're eating the person. And that's how bad the materialism was. That's how bad the black magic was and how pronounced it was. Now, if you look at black magic, the way what you're kind of talking about here, it's all about selfish intention, right? Now, I'm sure there's witchcraft that they're trying to be more selfless or whatever like that. But let's just say from what you're talking about, the angle that you're pointing at, right? Now, there's also white magic. That's what the masters use. That's what disciples use, whether it's unknowingly or unknowingly. They use it for the service that they're doing. There's a reason why, for instance, so many people are attracted to the Mona Lisa is because there's so much light coming off the Mona Lisa when Leonardo da Vinci painted it. It's like we're attracted to that subconsciously. So there's a light that comes off of it, and it's so pronounced and so strong that it's, because Leonardo da Vinci was nearly a master when he painted that. But if you look at the description of my video, I have, if you kind of scroll down a little bit, there's the Great Invocation. And I'll read a couple stanzas of it. So it says, "From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men, let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men, may Christ return to earth." This great invocation is so ancient that the masters don't even know its origin, really. But they all say it, and Maitreya says it every single day and has been saying it every single day for eons. And it was given out to the world through Alice Bailey back in the 40s. And it's an invocation that humanity will start to say more and more and more and more and more because it has quite a profound effect on the environment. But it's using white magic, because if you read the stanzas, and like I said, I don't want to go through all of them, but if you read the stanzas, because there's 4 of them, but if you read the stanzas, none of them have anything to do with the individual getting anything. It's all about the world. It's all about selflessness. So, but spiritualism in form of spirituality is really the approach that humanity will eventually more and more take to becoming masters themselves, more so than religion, where religion is based off belief, right? So for instance, I'll give you another example. Where I work, I deal with the public, and of course I have to make change and money. Well, the Fed has just run out of physical coins, and Walmart's not, if you go to Walmart, they're having a hard time making change. Grocery stores are having a hard time making change. Of course, where I work and so forth are having a hard time making change. But anyway, this guy, just today actually, I told him, I said, here's a gift receipt for your change. Unfortunately, we have no change. It's coming from the Fed, doesn't have it. He goes, I don't believe that whatsoever. And I kind of said to him, I was like, it doesn't really matter whether you believe it or not. I have no change. You know what I'm saying? So religion to me is just like that. It's just, people think that their beliefs are 100% accurate and real. And yet they have nothing, a lot of times they have nothing to do with anything. So what does it matter whether you believe it or not? They're out of change. You know what I'm saying? I don't have any change to give you is my point, right? So, but spiritualism in a way will eventually start to take over that, and it won't be so much about belief as it is about being a constructive participant in the creation of a new world and eventually service towards humanity and so forth, then more so than belief, but bringing in the spiritual aspect of it, because if you look at everything's spiritual really, and you can be spiritual in politics, in religion, in healthcare, in education, and in economics and everything. It's all spiritual, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. But hopefully that answers that question. And then when it comes to satanic activity, David, you're talking to somebody who doesn't really believe that there is a Satan. So I think Satan was written in there as a symbol for the selfish nature of humanity within all of us. In fact, actually, there's a quote that people love to throw my way about Maitreya, because Maitreya says that humanity has a choice. We can either continue on the ways of which we're doing of the past and destroying ourselves, or we have it within ourselves to create peace. And the way to do that is to take resources that are sitting, wasting in a country and give it freely to other countries. food that's literally just going to waste and the rats are getting fat off of it, and giving it to people who need it, who are hungry. That will bring about justice, which will eventually bring about peace. That's what he says. Now they think, because people like Benjamin Creme have been saying that something like that for years to describe what his solution is to bring about peace, that he is promising peace. He's going to come before the cameras and promise everybody peace. Everybody's going to believe it. Everybody's going to follow into this ruse, and then whammo, that's when the hammer's going to fall and everyone's going to see that he's the Antichrist. Because Paul said in the Corinthians, even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. I don't personally subscribe to that. I don't believe it for 1 second. What I think Paul was talking about, he was using the lost art of symbology in order to communicate to people who had no concept of psychology, of the mind, of emotions, of subconscious, of intentions, anything. They had no idea of what that meant. He said that, you check your motives. Are your motives selfish or are they selfless? Because we oftentimes think that our motives are pure, selfless, and helpful. In reality, they're unpure, selfish, and harmful. And we all do it. We all are guilty of it. And we have to be very cognizant and aware of what we're doing to see if what we're saying and what we're doing is really helping somebody or harming them. Are what we're saying or doing really selfless? Or, and we might think that we're doing it for selfless reasons, but we're actually very, very, very selfish in why we're doing it. And that's what I think he was talking about. Not some Antichrist figure of today. But, they disagree with me, but that's what I think. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Now, getting back to your next question. Oh, quickly. Thoughts based on your knowledge of the rapture when Christ is supposed to gather his church. David, I do apologize. I was going to read the biblical passage, but my daughter actually has the iPad, so I can't read it right now. So I do apologize about that. So I'll just have to kind of quote it. Of course, the Christians are awaiting rapture to come when the Christ comes back, and it's going to sweep up his church, and they'll be avoided all the pain and misery of the hell on earth that the Antichrist is going to submit and all that kind of stuff. I think that's all symbology. Now, I think their interpretation of what's going to happen is their misinterpretation of it. And a lot of the misinterpretations that people have of the Bible is time frames. For instance, you got Genesis, right? According to most evangelical fundamentalist Christians, the entire universe was created in 7 days. It was created by God, but it took a lot more than 7 of our days. Now, Moses, when he was talking to the people at the time, we're talking to people that wouldn't have any concept of light years, expansions of the universe, billions of years. They didn't even know what the word billion meant. In fact, if you look at literature, the word billion didn't come around until, 50, 60, 70 years ago. It was always 1,000 million. So, do you think back, 3, 4, or 5,000 years ago, they would, well, what's a million? Let's count it out. 1, 2, 3. You know what I'm saying? They probably didn't even know how to count, let alone count to 1,000,000, right? They maybe could count to 10, So he had to use those words to keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid, as they always say in sales, right? Now you get to Revelation, right? He was using symbology to teach what he saw. But what I think he's talking about in terms of the rapture is about the Christ principle awakening within the hearts of all humanity. This is a part of the return of the Christ. See, they even think that the Christ is going to come back in an instant. Or the return of the Christ is an instantaneous happening, like a snap of a finger, right? It really isn't. Even if you look at the Great Invocation, right? That was eons old. And what's the second stanza say? From the point of love within the heart of God, may love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. This has been going on for eons. And to get back to your first question, when I talked about the spiritual, the dark magic and everything, and the forces of light and the forces of darkness of Atlantean times, right? When the continent of Atlantis was intentionally destroyed, the masters of wisdom, which is the group that I'm talking about, and the masters of involution both retreated to their abodes, like their ancient their hidden away retreats, away from the eyes of the public. But the masters of wisdom knew that eventually they would have to come back into the world, deal with humanity directly, just like they did 100,000 or so years ago at some point, and had been working indirectly with members of humanity, the disciples of the world, the men and women who have made some kind of impact of their time, in order to bring about the change for this to go on. And then if you look at your question about the rapture, right, over the next 2,000 or 2,500 years, as the Christ principle starts to awaken within all of humanity, that's a part of the return of the Christ too. So it's thousands and thousands and thousands of years going on, but yet the evangelical Christians misinterpret it as an instantaneous, like a snap of a finger. Same thing with the rapture. They think it's just going to happen within a moment, or maybe a week or two, or I don't know how long they're thinking it is after all this stuff, the end times start to take place. You know what I mean? But yet it's not even the end times, it's the end of an age and the beginning of another age, right? But it's all kind of misinterpreting the time frame of it. That's why I always say that if you read Revelations from a standpoint of fear, it will give you nightmares, when you go to sleep. And there are so many people who've wasted their entire life, and it's sad to say this, but they've wasted their entire life because of their fear of because of the misinterpretation of Revelation. But if you look at the book of Revelation from another standpoint, from a standpoint of hope, from an esoteric standpoint that the Christ is coming back to help aid humanity, and we're going to get past it and all this kind of stuff, and we're going to create peace on earth, then the book of Revelation is actually quite a hopeful book. It just depends on which way you're looking at it. Does that make sense? But I do think that the rapture is about the awakening of the Christ principle within all humanity. And certain masters, especially Maitreya and the Master KH or the Master Kuthumi, are going to work directly with awakening the hearts of all humanity. And that's part of their job. But that's part of the whole process, I think, of the rapture. Now, the sweeping up of humanity and bringing it into the kingdom of heaven, which is what rapture is supposed to do, is a symbolic imagery of once the Christ principle starts to awaken within the hearts of all of us, or of a person, they start to move out of the human kingdom and taking steps to move into the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of souls, or the hierarchy of masters, or the masters of wisdom, or the kingdom of God. It's a process that goes on. And if you look at the Bible again, in the New Testament, that was symbolized by certain events in Jesus' life. The birth, which is the awakening of the Christ principle within the heart of a person. The baptism, control of the emotions, the transfiguration, the crucifixion, and of course the resurrection when they become a master. Those are all written about certain points in Jesus' life which did happen, but they were written in a way to symbolize the 5 steps that somebody takes toward the end of their evolutionary journey on this planet to become a master. And over the next 2,500 years, the majority of humanity will move out of the human kingdom and start to phase into the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of souls, and become more and more of their soul, is really what it amounts to. So, but it's all, of course, under the guidance of the masters of wisdom and, of course, Maitreya. So hopefully that helps. All right. Now, I do want to read one of Benjamin Creme's Masters articles. I love reading these things at the end, and I always hope that everybody sticks it out to the end, because this is the juicy part of the video. Now, I always have to put this disclaimer in there for a few reasons. One, it's always better to read Benjamin Creme's Masters article on your own and to internalize the words, to soak it in, to take it in for yourself and read it, and maybe even have to look up a word or two like I have to do. I also, the reason why it's always better for you to read it, because your vocabulary is probably better than mine, and there's always 1 or 2 words in here that always kind of trip me up. And then the third reason is, and I can just imagine Benjamin Creme's voice but coming from his master. Because I used to say stuff to Benjamin Creme all the time. You go, that is glamour, total glamour, Gary, right? And I could see his master saying this and hearing it in Benjamin Creme's voice. Why did you read my articles like this? It's always better for them to read it on their own. And I can look him in the eye and I can say, Master, I always encourage them to go seek out your books, to read it online or whatever it is. And I always said it was better for them to read it. So I could cover my ass. So anyway, All right, so this one's entitled The Teachers Are Ready. Without doubt, events are moving to a point of climax. Daily, the news communicators report the growing incidents of crime, violence, murder, torture, and rape. Fear grips the elderly and discourages the young. Hope fails in the cities as the drug kings rule. Across the countries of the West, a deep malaise asserts itself, and corruption, great and small, becomes the order of the day. Driven by market forces, governments vie with one another in fierce competition, sacrificing thereby the livelihood and well-being of their peoples. In the name of business efficiency, healthcare, and education, once hallmarks of a civilized life, fall foul of the predator's claws. Rootless and hopeless, millions face the future with despair. Blinded by, quote, the logic of the market, unquote, the ideologues enact their unholy ritual on the long-suffering poor, nor do they see the inevitable result of their folly. The collapse of the structures they seek to control. Whatever they do, whichever way they turn, they find the working of the law against them. Cause and its effect may not be denied. Soon the remnants of this civilization will be seen for what they are, the frail and final fragments of injustice and greed. Soon the people themselves will usurp this faltering power and claim their rights as citizens of the world and children of God. The sickness at the heart of the present dispensation is selfishness, complacency, and fear. Where these three reign, separation and exploitation, handmaidens to ruthless greed, inevitably flourish. Only a rethinking of the meaning and purpose of life will suffice to steer men from the edge of disaster. Only a new sense of realism will provide the key to unlock these mysteries. When man's erstwhile temples, the stock markets of the world, crumble and crash, that key will turn and reveal a new beauty waiting to be born. Then men will know themselves as brothers, searching in the dark for the same guiding star. They will come to see that the only way forward is together, in cooperation for the general good. They will realize anew the reason for their presence on earth and seek to implement in every possible way their understanding of the plan. Thus will it be. Thus will men accept the counsel of their elder brothers and know that through all vicissitudes they have never been alone. Always behind the scenes have stood these wiser and more experienced wayshowers, ready when called upon to shine their light on man's problems and to illumine his way. Now, as never before, does that light shine brightly, and no longer from afar. From the midst of man's anguish does the light now serve as beacon, gathering all who are ready to ease humanity's pain. The call to service has sounded. The teachers are ready. Awake! Awake!
Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.